Good evening, good morning, and good day to everybody. It is a Monday. Hope
Happy
you all had
Monday.
a good weekend. We had a good weekend, at least I believe, but we all did have a good weekend.
Yeah.
We had spoken last week about the immunity, a couple of weeks now, immunity thing with Trump.
Yeah.
And our thought process was that we were hoping that he did. Actually, some of us were hoping that it didn't come through with immunity, but he did. They have voted 6-3 to give Trump immunity, beautiful, beautiful immunity. It's the best immunity you will ever get, ever.
Right.
Best immunity. I have the best to win immunity. So he's now got immunity from official acts, and
Right.
that has caused some people to, I don't know if the word is panic or show
Show
their
their true
colors.
colors.
There it is.
Uproar.
Show their colors. Yeah.
Show what kind of mask they hide behind. Yeah.
Yeah. So first we're going to hear the news, and then we'll have a discussion because it's a twofold ruling, really.
In reading through this opinion, I can't see how this doesn't induce cardiac arrest with the special counsel. At one point in the opinion, they say, look, this is a quote, the indictment's allegations that Trump attempted to pressure the vice president to take particular acts in connection with his role with the certification proceeding, thus involve official conduct. And Trump is at least presumptively immune from prosecution for such conduct. The court then goes on to say that the burden, of course, is on Jack Smith. He has to show that this does not pose any intrusions into the executive branch. And the court says that that this, quote, may well hinder the president's ability to perform his constitutional functions. So here the court is imposing a very significant burden on Jack Smith when this goes back to the judge. We talked about how this trial judge has proven to be very favorable towards Jack Smith. She's certainly been motivated to try to get a trial before the election. But the court here is giving much more clear lines than some people expected. They're saying that there is a presumption here that you have to deal with. The burden is high, and the court indicates that it may view this as something that could hinder a president's authority.
Trey, the Biden campaign clearly is indicating that they think this is a loss, at least in the way they wrote that statement that Dana read. I want to just read for 1 second about the dissent from Justice Sotomayor, who writes the dissent with Kagan and Jackson. Today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. Whatever happens, as you read through this decision, it does expand the power of the executive. It is pretty consequential if we look at it big picture, Trey.
Well, I always think it was consequential. I mean, who else has plenary pardon power? Who else can order the killing of an American citizen overseas? It's always been the president. So presidents have always enjoyed powers that the rest of us do not. I read that dissent as just, they must not have read the majority opinion, because the majority opinion is pretty simple. Unofficial acts have no immunity at all. Official acts, there is immunity. We're going to presume that it was official and
Now, thoughts on that? Let's hear it. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think people take away the wrong thing from this. Even in the actual opinion in the PDF file, you can read it for yourself if you want to. This is all about the idea of separation of powers, and it's also the difference between official and private acts. So they sent it back down to the lower court to figure out what the actual difference between a official act and a private act is. That's what it really comes down to, is that they're saying Donald Trump in his official capacity as president looked into the election and he did nothing wrong. That's the argument the Trump team's making, right? But the left seems to think that it just gives broad immunity for just about everything, which it does not. It's just a lie.
Yeah.
That's what they're going with. The left is lying, saying that their president can just do whatever he wants and it creates a lawless loan, which is the dissenting opinion by Sotomayor, by the way, that it just allows the president to assassinate whoever he wants. And that's not true, because it would still be unconstitutional to assassinate somebody without due process. You cannot just kill somebody. The state cannot kill somebody without due process rights. If they do that, it is not an official act. It would be deemed a private act. So if you killed somebody, say like a former president, because as your official capacity now deeming him as a terrorist and killed him, that would still be illegal, because you have to prove it in a court of law before you can even proceed with an assassination in the first place.
Yes, especially if you are coerced or entertaining the idea from someone else that you should off somebody.
Right.
That's the other thing, is that there is a little bit of an issue here, because now that the Supreme Court has made this decision, we are seeing some very unhinged behavior, which is not unusual, from the left. One of the odd reactions is by Harry Sisson.
Hair Bear.
For those of you who don't know Harry, you should remember Harry, the little kid that thinks he knows everything.
Yeah.
According to the Supreme Court, Biden could now send in SEAL Team 6 to take all of them out, meaning the Supreme Court. He could send the military to take out Trump. He has immunity for official acts. You see what Harry is conflating for official?
You're reading this wrong.
No. Let me finish. I think what he's doing is saying that an official act is anything done by an official, which is not what an official act is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lee.
But I'm just saying, no, you got to read it like a snooty, Gen Z kid with a God complex.
I couldn't even do that if I tried.
Biden,
I
could now send in.
Oh, they could.
Yeah.
Oh, wink, wink.
Wink.
Okay. So here's the thing. Barlin, can you bring this up? This is coming from the document itself. The reason he brought that up is because this is Sotomayor's opinion, by the way. This is her opinion as a dissenting voice on the 6-3 ruling, by the way. Only 3 people disagreed with this. I just want to point that out of the ruling. It wasn't even a close vote. So this new official acts immunity now lies about like a loaded weapon for any president that wishes to place his own interest, his own political survival, or his own financial gains above the interest of the nation. Right? The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way under the majority reasoning, he will now be insulated from criminal prosecution. Ordering Navy SEALs Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. And like I said, I don't know how you're a justice if you don't get this idea that you cannot just order somebody to kill someone without due process. That's the whole point of why we have people on death row for 20 plus years, because they have to go through the process of appeals.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just, even though we know people that are monsters in prison right now, we just can't take them out back and shoot them in the back of the head, because there's something called due process.
Isn't that
it's
what
not an official act?
Don't they say Putin does that?
Yeah, exactly what they say Putin does. And people like Harry, man, and we knew this was going to happen. The left gets unhinged about everything. And it's not only Harry that's saying that. You see this through a lot of left-wing creators on X, and they're all saying the same thing. They're all regurgitating the same thing. Someone to send someone in and take out Trump, drone strike Trump. And it's insane. But
yeah,
we have the Secret Service for a reason. Wink, wink.
You can't do that because it's still illegal to murder somebody. So let's put it like this: if a president, if a president said, "Hey, I want you to go take out somebody because I think they're a terrorist," I'm going to put that in quotation marks because I think personally they're a terrorist and they should be eliminated. You can't do that if they're a U.S. citizen. You could probably argue it away because they're a foreign entity, right? Which we've been doing for the last 20 years. But even then, that's still kind of suspect. Right? You can't just kill somebody because you wish to, right? That still wouldn't be constituted as an official act. Nobody in their right mind with the common sense of a normal person would believe that would be true.
But I also heard somebody also say in a weird, twisted way that now that Trump has immunity, it also means that Biden now has immunity too. And do we really want that if Biden behaves in the same way Trump does? It's like a weird.
Well, if he does, it's not illegal. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, right.
It still comes down to official versus private acts.
Here's what I hope. Or could they do this? So if Trump was to get elected, let's say this, Trump gets elected and then the Supreme Court brings this back up again, talking about immunity. And they took Trump's immunity. Say they came back and they say, we want to get rid of immunity. What would happen then? Would Trump be safe? Or would they go after him for Jan 6 still?
Everything
it don't matter.
Trump, they will go after, regardless of whether it's legit, not legit, warranted, unwarranted. They cannot afford for him to be the president. Look, okay, let's look at this, Mr. Aaron's tweet here. This absolute baboon. So if Joe Biden declares today that November's election is canceled, one, he can't.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to get to that point, first of all. And ordered the military to keep him in power, which is what you say Trump can't and shouldn't do, right? But you're more than willing for Biden to do it, thinking that that would be an official act. No, it is not an official act. No, because there's no powers granted to him to do that.
Right, because the elections are up to the states. I want to remind people the elections is not a federal issue; it's a state's issue. All the states control the federal election because they represent themselves.
Yeah,
some people don't understand.
Yeah, and we're not trying to insult anyone's intelligence out here because we know you guys understand how elections work. But Coy's right.
Well, we are.
Everything is at the state level. So Biden doesn't have the authority to even stop.
Yeah, if Biden did that, he would definitely be considered a dictator and would be thusly removed from office because you can't just do that.
He's already a dictator.
So and here's this guy. Now, if you have not seen this guy, he's also on TikTok, but he's like a secondhand Temu version of Harry. He's like a Temu
Wish version
of Harry. Yeah, and Harry and Good Trouble mixed. He's like either way, he's a very special kid. I strongly encourage Joe Biden to take advantage of his absolute immunity, which I don't think that's what it said. Did it say absolute immunity?
Nope. Yes. Oh. Absolute.
No.
Nothing's absolute. But,
the ruling say absolute immunity?
No, it didn't.
Oh,
no.
It has immunity for official acts, and like I said, it comes down to the definition of official and private acts,
which has been lawfully granted by Trump's Supreme Court justices. Which he didn't elect 6 of them, did he? Did he put 6 of them? Did he say these are my 6 picks?
No, I think he only put 3, right?
That's what I thought. Okay, making sure. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
To do whatever official acts he needs to do in order to prevent Trump from becoming president.
Even they put them in quotation marks, official acts. They don't actually believe that.
They know what they're saying. Yeah. But you can't. Here's the thing. You can't. There's nothing you can do to prevent somebody from running, especially when they've done nothing wrong, illegal, criminal. Even if you do convict him of felony, he can still run and become president. If you are thinking of stopping him from becoming president, it must mean one of 2 things. You have a plan, a plot to make sure he gets removed from the ballot somehow, some way, considering that there's nothing on the books right now that can take him off of it, or you are trying to figure out a way to do an official act by killing somebody.
Right.
Those are the only 2 ways you can get this done officially.
I would argue what they've done, especially in New York City, against Trump has never been an official act because the DA ran on a platform of going after Trump in a biased manner. That's not an official act. That's a way of winning support over from an electorate. Right. So that's not an official act. An official act would be if we found something and it was reported there's a crime, we investigate it. Not that we create one in order to investigate someone.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be what you call government corruption. Oddly enough, all the people that are suggesting these things are the same one that denounce people thinking that Donald Trump would do it.
Yep.
Mind you, Trump never did anything like it, but the mere fact that other people think he will, they're saying that would be completely wrong.
Right.
But now they're okay with it. Look, we're not the ones espousing stuff. Okay, we're not us. If I am going to say something is wrong, that's what I'm saying. If something is wrong, there is there's a massive gap in my brain if I think I can do the same act while calling somebody wrong for doing it. If I genuinely believe that this is wrong, there's no way that would even breach my mind for me to do it too, under some other pretext or context or excuse. Either it's wrong to me or it's right to me. And if it's wrong to me, regardless of when or how, I don't do it. But that's not the left. They just don't want you doing something that they're more than willing to do themselves. They just want them to be able to do it and not you.
And you see it all the time. You know, they're still running with that statement Donald Trump made at that Sean Hannity interview when he said, how long are you going to be a dictator? And he said for 1 day. So you're seeing it trending right now where Kamala Harris is saying, and a lot of these, you know, these politicians are talking about, we don't want a dictator. So with this being passed, now a lot of these leftist shills right here are assuming since Donald Trump mentioned the word dictator, he's going to become a dictator since he doesn't have immunity. And this
it's the same way that they harped on the whole black job idea. Like, like they just, he said black and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, outrage central. It's like, what? Grow up, you moron.
No, I wish Donald Trump was the person the left imagines. Right? Like, I really wish he was exactly that, but he's not. There's a lot of things that Donald Trump is, but one of the things he's not is what they imagine the boogeyman to be. I wish he was, but he's not. A lot of the things that he promised in his first term, he wasn't able to get done because he's not the person they think he is. That's the thing. And he's still going to face the same opposition he was in the first term. So it's still going to be, we'll get what we can get with Donald Trump. But I do not think, and nobody in their right mind believes Donald Trump is an absolute dictator, nor is he the second coming of Hitler. Nobody actually believes that.
Or Jesus.
And if they do, they are stupid.
And he's also not the second coming of Jesus either.
Obama
Harry doubled down on his tweet, by the way. All these MAGA lunatics are saying that this is suggestive language when the first 5 words are according to the Supreme Court, except that the first 5 words of yours is about the death of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they rule for you to be able to say, I want them dead and I want Biden to do it?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Harry. Here's the point. I know you're trying your best to cover this up and make it look like people are reading something wrong into your tweet. Your tweet, yours, specifically said that now Biden could send SEAL Team 6 to kill the Supreme Court members. You said that. Nobody else.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a call to action? And is that protected by the First Amendment?
Violence, yes.
Well, it's a call to action to incite violence.
Yes, it's not protected. No,
it's not protected.
And it's not protected, right?
No.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I mean, it's one of those things of like, oh, won't somebody rid me of this priest, right? This is exactly what it is. It's like, oh, you know, I mean, Biden could do this thing. I'm not saying he should do it, but he could do it. According to the Supreme Court, this is their logic, is that the Supreme Court says they have absolute immunity. No, that's not what they said. They said there's a difference between official acts and private acts. If you assassinate your political rival, it would be a private act because you use corruption in the form of government in order to attack a political rival and kill them. That would be illegal. That would still be murder. You cannot justify that under any official act. It's that simple.
If this is true, hang on. If this is true, I'm hoping it is, but if it is true, it would be amazing. It really would be amazing. Hang on. Let me get this right here. Boom. No. Okay. Let me make sure I get this. If this is true. I hope it's true. I really do hope it's true.
I doubt it, though.
If he is under investigation, it would be nice.
I who knows, man? But you know, Harry's got to watch his mouth. Harry is so arrogant and his ego is so big that he thinks that he's some up and coming rising star on X, and everyone knows he's been on all these television shows. He's been on the news. He's talked to Piers Morgan. He's talked to all these big timers.
Yeah.
So he's at the point now to where he thinks he can say what he wants to say, and he thinks his talent agency is going to protect him. He thinks the DNC is going to protect him, and they might not, because Harry's days are numbered, man. If Biden doesn't win, you're not going to hear from Harry anymore like this. So he knows he's desperate. He's reaching for straws. So I really do, and I hope it's filmed. I hope everyone sees it, Harry, when the Secret Service shows up at your house. I pray to God.
I'm not surprised, but like the people that actually believe that Biden would have the protections to assassinate Donald Trump is stupid. Like, how does that logically make sense for anyone? And I know these people aren't very logical people and they're very emotional driven, but still, at the end of the day, you can't honestly be that dumb. Like it blows my mind if they actually are that stupid.
They are that stupid. Just you go follow them on X. If you look at their tweets, they're that stupid. I mean, these are the same people who will sit up here with a straight face and tell you that Biden won that debate with a straight face. He was the best of the best of the best. That's my God. With a straight face. You can imagine how stupid these people are. And so they get so arrogant, and their hate for Trump is so embedded in them that they will type things and not think about it before they send it out. Because for some reason, they don't understand the law. They don't understand how it works. You cannot call to action, like Jay said, in a public forum that's issuing some type of threat.
He had something to say, by the way. So
here we go.
Oh, yeah. That's
so Donald Trump's campaign manager just threatened me on social media. I'm not joking. In response to the immunity decision from the Supreme Court this morning, I said on Twitter, according to the Supreme Court, Biden can now send in SEAL Team 6 to take them all out. He could send in the military to take out Trump. He has immunity for official acts now. And I guess the Trump campaign didn't like that very much, because Trump's campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, responded to me by saying, expect a visit. Now,
that's not a threat. That's a promise.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's the problem, Harry. Here's your biggest problem. You think Biden's going to protect you this time. The fact is, you mentioned taking out Trump via the military, which means you are calling for the death of Donald Trump. You absolute fool bag. That's empty. You are setting yourself up, and I hope you do go to prison. I hope you go to the kind of prison where every male in there sees you as a female. And I hope you get to identify as one with only one entry. I hope that happens to you. See, maybe you can actually get your fulfilling wish of becoming a true social justice warrior and taking one for the team from the team. I hope it happens, because you don't seem to understand. You're the one that says Donald Trump's words incite violence and people to action. You use this kind of rhetoric and you expect nothing to come to you? Are you serious? Bro, you are a different kind of delusional.
And you know, he's your typical narcissist, right? You know how narcissists operate. You know, they'll say something, they get a reaction, and then they play victim. He got a reaction. Instead of saying, hey, you know, I might have made a mistake of what I said. I probably wasn't thinking what I said. He doubles down and he comes on his platform, post a video, and he's the victim now. Oh, the Trump campaign is coming after me. Oh, they're coming after me. But he's going to learn, man. And I do hope it happens. And I don't think someone from Trump's campaign would write him and issue that without it happening.
Without somebody
he was alluding to the Secret Service for sure.
Somebody knows. Somebody already knows. And he's panicking. The reason he's making a video is because he's in panic. Watch his account go private for a few days here in a minute. Just watch.
Yep.
Now, what do you think that means? Is the Trump campaign threatening me with a visit? Are they saying?
Are you that dumb? Are you that stupid?
He's playing victim.
No, the CIA, the FBI, all of them. Those are the ones that are going to visit you. Secret Service, they're going to visit you, you jack tool. They're going to visit you. They'll raid your home. I hope to God they raid your home. Heaven alone knows what kind of paraphernalia they're going to find there too.
And you know, the thing is, Marlon, you know, with crimes like this, especially when you're using the computer, the internet, interweb, and all this stuff, they can actually seize all of his equipment. And so if they seize his equipment, imagine the stuff they're going to find on his phone, on his computer, all the little secret chats. Probably if he's saying this shit, or if he's saying this stuff in open forum about taking a president out, imagine what's being said in his
backstage.
You guys have too much faith in the Secret Service, for one, and two, the fact that they would actually do anything.
Well, I'm talking about the fact that he doesn't understand who is going to visit him. Look, if Trump wanted to visit you, it'd be trust me, bro. it'd be a different story. You wouldn't be able to make a video.
And
if you say Trump is Hitler, you don't want a visit from him.
And here's the thing: doesn't Trump have Secret Service protection for life? Right?
He does.
Yeah,
so
he does.
Trump's Secret Service
and his immediate family members.
His Secret Service can go and investigate this. They sure can investigate it. I'm not. Who's talking about Biden's Secret Service or the left Secret Service? The people we're talking about, the people that answer to Trump directly. They can go pay him a visit because that's what they're there for.
But they're still under the control of DHS.
You know those babies that are born with no brain?
Yeah.
Their head's like really flat, look almost like a frog. He looked like he's on the spectrum for that. Like he only got like half a brain in his head, and he has to grow the hair to cover the fact that it's sunk in.
What's the alcohol baby syndrome?
Yeah.
Fetal alcohol syndrome. That's what you're thinking of.
Yes, fetal alcohol syndrome.
Are we also forgetting the fact that he also included in his threat the
Supreme Court justice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh. Now, and with that,
my house to try to keep me quiet so I won't advocate against their candidate. Is that what he's implying here? No, I'm just using my First Amendment rights to tell them how awful their candidate is. But of course,
no. See, the First Amendment right, like you said, Harry, in your own words, does not cover violent actions, does it, Harry?
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't.
Nothing of your tweet is peaceful. Let's start there. Secondly,
these are also the people that say
you
that
are the one talking about the Supreme Court. Forget Donald Trump for just a second. Let's just put him on the back burner, and we'll give you the excuse that you can say that about him because he is a treasonous person and he does have felonies and all the other things you want to add to Donald. Let's say that's the truth. You don't have that standing with the Supreme Court.
Nope.
Yeah. You don't have that coverage.
I want to remind people there was a guy not too long ago that tried to go to Kavanaugh's house to murder him.
Thank you.
That got swept under the rug, but there was a crazy extremist leftist that tried to go to Kavanaugh's house and kill him.
That was during 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and the reason Coy brought that up, you got to understand, this kid's not going to go out and do it himself, and you got to think about the influence he has. We're looking at it from the right. We would never follow this just thing, but he does have a huge following, and he's very influential to a lot of people, believe it or not. So imagine if one of his followers took what he said and said, you know what? That sounds like a good idea, Harry. I'm going to take one for the team and try, just like they did with Justice Kavanaugh.
Literally be like, I'm going to help Biden out and do it.
Yeah. That's why you don't say stuff like
Trump
that.
Campaign doesn't believe in all that. Trump said he wants to be a dictator on day one. This really is the perfect summary of the Trump campaign. Their candidate is so terrible that they have to resort to tactics like this. But here's my message to Chris LaCivita and the entire Trump campaign. No, I won't be quiet. The tens of millions of Americans who don't support Donald Trump won't be quiet either, because we see Donald Trump for what he is: a con man, a fraud, and a convicted felon.
Except he'll be one rebuttal video queued up.
He's brave because he literally thinks he's immune to any backlash.
Exactly. Yeah. He does.
Because he's been immune. He's been immune.
Yeah.
There you go. So remember what he just said, and I want you to remember what he just said and listen to this.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America, billionaires in America.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
He's smart. He's on his game. His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
Sharp like what?
Sharp as a tack, man.
The back
Sharp
of a butter knife. He's as sharp as the back of a butter knife.
So, like, what reality is the left living in? What are they seeing? Like, for real, I don't get it. What are they seeing that we're not? You know what I mean? Because it's pretty obvious to us normal people with normal brains. Even if he was on the right, let's say Trump was like that.
Yeah,
we would sit back and say, I don't know.
I think you need to sit this one out.
Yeah, I think you need to sit this one out, Trump. Thank you. We need to get somebody else in there. So how come they don't see it like that? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me.
Trump is pushing it himself. This is his last election. I'm just going to be honest. After this, he's not going to be a viable candidate because he's going to be just in the same territory as Biden after this point. Right. So like, which is be honest. These people are too old, way too old. Right. So like we understand the difference. They should have removed this guy from the beginning of the cycle of this election. They should have removed him then. They should have had it already planned, but they kept pushing it and they kept propping him up. And now everybody can see how bad he is. That they're like, oh, we messed up real bad. We messed up real bad.
Yeah, but well, you know, we're going to keep an eye on that, people, and we want you guys to keep an eye on it too. So if you see anything come across your feed that we didn't catch, please let us know. Especially when it comes to Harry Sissy, Hair Bear, whatever you want.
All of them.
All of them. If you see anything,
he has main character syndrome.
If you see anything about like
that's a good one.
You know, if you see anything about Secret Service going to his house, you get a picture of Harry crying in his underwear and his little Speedos, you know, just let us know so we can really, really make fun of him. Because he go to X, you'll see they're eating him up on X right now.
Let's
like I said, it's to the point that the left actually believes in their own propaganda. That's the problem, right? They've been propagandized to so hard and for so long that they actually believe the propaganda.
Yeah.
They forgot it was a lie, and they believed the lie so hard that now it's the truth for them.
Yeah.
Period.
And there's not much you can do to deter their stupidity. What they believe is what they believe. Mm-hmm. There's not much you can do to change that. Unfortunately, they don't have the same sort of what would you say, checks and balances that we would normally have. We have 15 billion, they have like 1. And the other part of the rulings that happened over this weekend was
the Chevron doctrine.
The Chevron decision. Okay, so let's listen to what it says.
Very big decision from the Supreme Court overturning Chevron NRDC. For that, we'll turn to Eamon Javers. Hey, Eamon.
Carl, that's right. This is a sweeping decision by the Supreme Court to overturn what's called the Chevron precedent here. The reason it's significant is because it has enormous implications for the administrative state in the United States of America and all federal agencies and their ability to interpret the law. What the Chevron precedent was a 1984 case from the Supreme Court, which held that in absence of other information, courts should give deference to administrative agencies' interpretation of the law. That gave a huge area of wiggle room for federal agencies to interpret what Congress meant when it passed given laws, if there was any gray area in those laws. What the Supreme Court is now saying this morning in a 6-3 decision is that courts may not defer to an agency interpretation of the law simply because a statute is ambiguous. Chevron, they say, is overruled. Again, that is a 6-3 decision. Yes. One interesting point here, going back to the Chevron case originally in 1984, the Supreme Court writes, Chevron decided in 1984 by a bare quorum of 6 justices triggered a marked departure from the traditional judicial approach of independently examining each statute to determine its meaning. So some skepticism here of whether that case was originally decided correctly. The Supreme Court now saying it was not. Chevron is overturned, and there's going to be enormous questions now, Carl, for administrative agencies across the federal government as to how they move forward with interpreting rules when there is a gray area in the law. A lot of uncertainty now for federal agencies,
good.
Carl.
I love it.
This decision is the best thing for constitutionalists because it makes it so places like the EPA or the DEA and any of the other 3-letter agencies cannot just make up the rules because it's the gray area of the law. We know what the law is, but we can just make up rules and regulations how we see fit and in accordance to what we think. And so they can't do that anymore. It has to be set in law and you have to execute it as the law intends. And it's said. There's no gray area anymore.
So in other words, if you have a maximum of 100 rounds in your household, ATF has a rule where you can only have 50 rounds.
Yes.
Because, there's no set ammunition law in the quota of ammunition in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Therefore, ATF can now say, well, no. Yeah, you can have it, but here's our rule for how much you can have.
Can't do that anymore.
You can't do that anymore. Unless it's specifically passed by Congress.
And it's going to affect a lot of other agencies too. It's not, Jay mentioned ATF. You got to look at the IRS, the EPA, FBI. And I think it's going to trickle down all the way to, local agencies too. It will trickle down because I was on another podcast and we talked about how we just need to go back to the Constitution, constitutional law. Most constitutionalists will say this because every state you go to, there's some type of statute, some type of rule, some here, and it's all different everywhere you go because they're all interpreting the law the way they want to interpret it. Now that this is gone, that means the Constitution becomes the supreme law of the land again. And anything that they want to pass or anyone they want to prosecute, it has to go to Congress. Then Congress is going to look at it and see if it and decides whether or not it aligns with what they put out. And if it doesn't, it's null and void. So goodbye EPA, goodbye IRS, and all that crap. Let's go.
I think one of the other things that I think will eventually get lumped into this is social media platforms.
Yes.
How?
I'll tell you how. If I am the arm of the government trying to regulate the First Amendment, and the First Amendment has very specific clauses in it for my freedom of speech, including and not up to disagreements. This could mean a big thing, especially considering what they did during the times of COVID, how they tell you can't say certain things because, and it's not, that's mind you, that's not the law. That's just their attack on you being able to speak.
Right.
So they can complete, just like with the ATF, you can have that, just not too many. You can say that, just not too far. And you can't disagree with this person. You can't disagree with that person. That's not law. That's just their preference that they put on you and they penalize you for it. So this will affect myriads of things that are on the surface. Seemingly people thought it was law. Think about the kinds of stuff that people will give for infractions in the law and stuff like that, for traffic stops. And this is a massive deal because now when you take that to court, you have a foot to stand on finally.
Yeah,
so
the Supreme Court decision is great.
So
the biggest thing is going to be for 2A because of the ATF. The ATF just continues to make up rules and regulations without the approval of Congress or even a statute behind it. So this is what this does: is it eliminates that gray area, unless specifically done by Congress and made into an actual law that is signed by the president at his desk. You cannot just make up regulations as you see fit. That's the problem. So unless it is not intended by the law that's already written on the books that is legally passed by Congress, you cannot just make up a regulation because you think that was the interpretation.
So let me play devil's advocate here for a second. I'm the EPA. I'm the EPA, and you guys are spewing too much pollutants from your fishery that I find to be egregious to the mandates of what I believe the environmental protection ought to be. So here's a rule where you can only have so much fish coming out of your fishery. What say you as in reference to that?
What law is it based on? It would be the first thing I ask.
Go ahead.
And what's the interpretation of that law? Did you just make that regulation up without any approval from Congress? And then that would be the end of the conversation.
I would say there's nothing constitutional about.
Then you have
then it goes away.
Chevron.
The Constitution again is going to become the supreme law of the land again, and so many of us been saying this because right now there's so many regulations out there that a lot of people are confused, and I think this is their way of bamboozling the American people.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, what citizen is going to read through 1,000 pages of regulations for anything? So they got all this stuff in there. They got all these regulations. The Congress says this, cut and dry. And then these 3-letter organizations add what they want to add. Most citizens aren't going to read this, and this is how they get you. This is how they police for profit. This is how they get money out of the citizens through fines, because most citizens don't understand the regulations. They understand the law that was passed, but they don't understand everything else under it. So with this, it gets rid of all that. And it just says, here it is. This is what we said, and this is what we go by.
Like one of the worst things Trump did with the bump stock ban, right? That was left up to the ATF to interpret what and what not was a bump stock, or the recent thing, which was the arm brace issue. This completely eliminates that from the ATF. They can't just make an arm brace illegal now because they said so.
And look, the bigger picture here. I think this is a much more friendly to the United States population ruling than the immunity one. What you're going to start seeing, this is my prediction, you're going to see them start to encapsulate Biden by saying what official acts are. This is what they're going to start. They're going to watch them all of a sudden start to hammer down and nail into the boarding what an official act is. And they will deem things that are not official acts as official acts in order to get away with immunity. This is the problem. And Lee, you talked about it too in one of your shorts, right? Where you said, if we lose or win this case with immunity, it's a long-standing problem that can come back and bite us in the butt. And it will. I'm not saying that he should not be immune from it, because if you look at the letter of the law, they shouldn't even have gone to Supreme Court to decide anything about classified documents because he was the president. And if you're going to do that, then you should have Joe Biden under investigation as the current president for having documents that he should not have had as a senator. But because they don't play the game fairly across the board, they're going to start saying, oh, well, now the court say that, well, definitely we got to go start changing stuff around. It's exactly what they did in 2020 when they realized that the board was stacked against them when it came to Trump. The same thing they did in 2016 when they realized it was rigged against them in terms of people not wanting them. They had to go and adjust some things on the back end, including changing laws. So don't be surprised that you start seeing them changing what the president's role is and what you consider an official act, and watch them do it like this. So the DOJ says this is now criminal, based on what? Based on this particular statute right here. And they're going to expand that statute. Now, they can expand it to the point where it doesn't need to go back to the Supreme Court, and they can do it what they call within reason. And once that's done, then the president can say, well, yeah. And on top of that, blah, 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 you are now criminal. This is how they're going to do it. And eventually, before too long, he'll be able to do whatever he wants. And by that time, they already talked about stacking the Supreme Court, right? They already said that.
But that's the thing people tend to forget, is that the president cannot make laws. The entire law is done through the legislative branch. The executive branch is there to institute the laws that are passed by Congress. See, this is the thing that the Chevron doctrine was bad for in the first place, is it gave broad interpretation of the law to them to make whatever regulations they wanted to, unless specifically passed by Congress, which is the body responsible for making and creating laws, that is signed by the president of the United States. It is not a law until that point. You cannot just make a regulation because you said so. You can't rule by decree just because you said so. The same thing with the executive powers. You can't just write something and it be constitutional. The president cannot just say whatever he wants on a piece of paper and say that's the law now. That's not how it works.
Yeah, and another thing with that, the Chevron is that a lot of judges will get some of these federal cases, like from the EPA and all those three other agencies. And because they weren't experts in that area, i.e., let's say the ATF, these judges aren't experts on guns as if the ATF is. They just hand it off to the ATF, and the ATF can just come up with whatever they want. And the judge is just going to sign off on it because why? Because he deems them the experts. So
I have
go ahead.
I've got a question about this because I'm looking at this from an economic standpoint. If in fact, now that the Chevron deference has been repealed, how many lawsuits do you think are going to stack up?
Oh, there's going to be a bunch.
Because now the bag is being affected by these agencies.
Yeah,
like
you're going to see a lot of EPA lawsuits.
Like if for instance, if I violate a OSHA regulation, but I'm within my constitutional right to be able to operate my business however I want to, and they come at me with a $500,000 fine because I violated a regulation that they instituted, I could sue them because it's within my constitutional rights on how I operate my business based on
Unless a law specifically states you can't do a certain thing, then it's not illegal. See, this is the thing that these agencies have gotten away with for so long, is that we create regulations themselves and say it's illegal, but it's not actually illegal because it's the gray area of the law in which they interpreted.
So I can countersue OSHA for millions.
Now, what they conflate and they think people are stupid enough to buy, which trust me, people have, is what is allowed versus what is lawful. They conflate those two things. We're not allowing you to do it, but is it illegal? We're not allowing you to do it. I heard you the first time, but is it illegal? We are not. This is how they do it. Now, if you remember carefully, this discussion was to the ATF. Listen to this interaction real quick. It's not going. I'm not going to play the whole 5 minutes. I just want you to listen to how exactly they try to weasel out of what is lawful versus what they decide is against the law. Okay.
Yeah. How many guns has the ATF lost?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Of course not.
Is it a difficult question to understand?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to any particular incident or time.
How many instances should we be looking at where you've lost guns?
So if what you're referring to is what happened at the National Destruction Branch, no guns were lost. They were stolen by an individual who's now in prison.
Right.
Who was not an ATF employee.
But there were recommendations made on what you should do so that you don't become the victim of the theft. And the Inspector General saying you're not following them. I'm quoting directly from the Inspector General's report. Thousands of firearms parts, and ammunition had been stolen from the ATF. So you gave testimony that the brave ATF agents are the ones showing up at 2 a.m. after a burglary. But it seems as though in this case, you were the one burglarized. Why have you not followed the recommendations of the Office of Inspector General so that you aren't the mark?
Again, I want to say that it is brave women men and women of ATF who do this. That's not
I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing. They're
day.
Getting robbed on one hand, so you can't keep a hold of the guns you're supposed to have. But then you do keep a hold of a bunch of stuff you're not supposed to have a hold of. The GAO report, firearms data, ATF did not always comply with the Appropriations Act restriction and should better adhere to its policies. As a result of breaking the law, didn't you guys have to go and delete like 250,000 records that you illegally kept?
Again, with respect to both the Inspector General reports that you're talking about.
One's Inspector General, one's GAO.
Well, the Inspector General report, ATF, that happened several years ago, more than that.
2022.
And ATF has, the report came out, but the theft, and ATF has implemented numerous different safety measures with respect to the National Destructive Branch.
Well, I mean, I'm reading to you from the report from last year, Mr. Director. We found that the NDB staff does not currently in 2022 adhere to established operating procedures in place to mitigate risk of firearms being lost and stolen. So I guess that shows an ATF that is not functioning correctly and is not responding to the problems you create.
Now, quick statement here. If you had guns, your possession, somebody stole those guns and did a crime with it, you could be held responsible. Per the ATF, they lose thousands of guns stolen from them, which they confiscated. So now it is in their possession, yes, and it's under their purview. If they lose the guns via theft and something happens, they're not responsible.
They don't lose those guns. I think Matt Gaetz is great, but they don't lose those guns. There are some that get stolen, but they don't lose them. I think he
intentionally used the word lost. Now I'll tell you why I think he intentionally used the word lost. It is to trip them up. You see, because when people say someone stole, it is lost to me now. When the ATF loses something, it's someone else's fault. He is pinning them down to commit to the statement that when you do it, it's okay. When the national people do it, then there's a problem for you have to go raid their home. You have to issue a warrant. But for some reason, when the ATF does it, I'm just not following certain regulations and I'm not going to really be held responsible. If a person does it, yes, it is breaking a regulation, but they'll also tell you it's illegal. The problem is you're going to see, and I don't think it's going to be just the EPA. I hope that there are many people, including, and not just them, but the family in Oregon that got shot down. I hope they bring a lawsuit to the ATF now to the point where they can just bankrupt the ATF and remove it off the face of the earth. I don't mind the ATF going away. They're not needed. They're a worthless organization. They don't do anything. And all they really do is collect drugs and guns to hand off to other countries and to cartel members. They don't do anything else but that. They're trafficking. They're government-sanctioned trafficking agencies, what they are.
Well, most of the agencies are, especially the CIA.
But I'm also looking at the FDA where they allow certain carcinogenic chemicals in our foods. I'm I'm looking at IRS. Who
did you know there's an acceptable level of mouse poop in your foods?
Yes, and
according
human,
to the FDA.
Yeah. Hey Jay, what was you saying about the IRS?
I mean, like there's some unconstitutionality in how the IRS takes our money.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's their regulations that we have to abide by in terms of our tax brackets and
well, you don't have to. Technically, you don't have to abide by anything because the taxes were never ratified.
Especially now.
You know what I mean? It's not a law. But what do they threaten you with?
I just thought of something.
Yeah, jail time.
I just thought of something. You remember Trump saying that he was going to try and take away that income tax thing and tax on tips?
Yeah.
Now he can actually do that without the need for Congress. You know why?
Right.
Because there is no law for income tax.
There is no law.
But here's the thing. They don't send you. Okay, so this is the thing that people misunderstand about tax evasion. They don't send you to jail for not paying the taxes. They send you to jail for lying about how much taxes you paid.
Yeah.
So it's the lie itself of how much money you made, not the fact that you didn't pay it.
Yeah, and that's true, but you're not required to pay it.
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of people don't understand.
But you're required to tell the truth about how much money you paid.
Yeah, and I don't even think you're required to do that because there's nothing in the Constitution that says I have to tell the federal government how much money I made. And this is why
regulation.
This is why. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, so it's a double-edged sword on the IRS. Either so if you don't pay taxes and you declare that no, I didn't pay any taxes, they can't fault you or criminalize you for lying because you're telling the truth.
Yeah, I didn't pay.
I didn't pay taxes, but if you lie and say that you made X amount of money on a form, so you just like the background check for the gun, right? You can't lie on the form, even though we can argue its legality. But if you lie on that, that's what they get you for, is lying on the piece of paper, not that you were actually doing it. Right? It's the same thing with the taxes. I said I made X amount of money, but when I really made another amount of money, that's what they get you for, is that lie between those two numbers, not that the fact that you did or did not pay taxes.
Yes, but they're getting you on the lie on something that's not constitutional.
That's where we're getting
so
at.
Even if I lied to you, I'm lying based on your lie to me. So I'm not. If anybody should be held, it should be you for requiring me to say something to you that I shouldn't be required to say.
That's what I was getting at. They can't, and this is why it's good that this Chevron passed, because you don't have to tell the IRS anything, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say I'm required to pay a tax. There is no law. The IRS is just an outside organization. They're not even a federal organization that's holding you to the standard that's not even legal. This is why this is so good.
What?
There's also the thing about self-incrimination, right? So the form that Hunter Biden got sent to jail for is technically unconstitutional because you have a right against self-incrimination. If you sign a form that says I did not do X thing, but you are on X thing, then that's technically illegal. You can't ask that question in the first place because you're asking somebody to incriminate themselves.
And then that's when the Fifth Amendment comes into play.
Right, exactly. Same thing with taxes. You can't ask me to incriminate myself if I tell you I made X money, but I didn't.
Right.
Then
again, it doesn't matter what we're getting at. It doesn't matter if they ask me. It doesn't matter what they say. It's not constitutional, so they shouldn't be asking.
I can't.
Period.
Wait. I can't.
That's where we're getting at.
All gone. If Trump gets in and he does manage to somehow eradicate income tax, I cannot wait to see heads explode. However, they don't realize that what you're doing by doing that is exactly the way it should have been at the onset of the United States becoming what it is now. You were never supposed to be taxed on that. That was never supposed to be the case. However, overreach and corruption has made it what they call law, but it is not law. It's mandate.
Yeah. See, this is the
simply
thing.
Mandate. The same thing they would at mask and jab. It's mandate, not law.
Yeah.
So Congress is allowed to make taxes, right? But they haven't actually passed an actual tax law that actually puts that on the books. Like you had the personal income tax. Yeah, these are all voluntary things because the reason it's voluntary because if you don't actually pay it, if you have no job, you don't have any income, you don't go to jail for not paying, right? So like if taxes were a thing that was like legal, right? You had to pay it or else then everybody would be in jail. Homeless would be in jail all the time for not paying.
No homeless people.
Yeah, how are they getting away and make
exactly? Money? And I've had this conversation with people when they're talking. People like these taxes, that's illegal. I said, okay, so why aren't the homeless people in jail? If they're saying it's a law and it's illegal not to pay a tax, it doesn't state in there whether or not you work or anything like that. If they said
it's based
not paying taxes is illegal, that means every single homeless person should be in jail right now.
Yeah, and they have social security numbers.
Yep, and they have that just goes to show you that it's not legal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's because it's if you make money, you have to pay taxes. Why? Who said?
Yeah, and they can't answer why. That's the best part is why.
It's like because it's the personal income tax thing that passed. What passed? What law? Where's it at?
So what does the 16th Amendment say though? Because I just read it. It says Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration.
Right. Mm-hmm. Where was the law that passed that? That's the thing. It was never ratified by anybody. It was never passed. That was the problem.
So the 16th Amendment is not a law.
It's just been sitting there.
It is. Yeah. I'm just saying that Congress never actually passed a law that says they had to.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is where people get tripped up. This is why you got to know what you know. Otherwise, they're going to look. This is why some people will get away from the grips of the law because they understand the law. And people get mad because the same way when Trump said he knows how to use the loopholes in the IRS. If it was illegal, why would you have loopholes? Just a question. If something is actually illegal, there would be no loopholes. And I mean intentional, by design, loopholes to get a certain amount from something that you're doing. You can't possibly tell me it's illegal. It's like saying, well, you can murder people as long as no, either murder is wrong or it's not. Which one is it?
Right.
See, because like I said, it's not illegal to not pay taxes. It's illegal to lie about paying taxes.
Which is why I'm going to keep lying.
And that's same here. And that's why people like Martha Stewart went to jail. Like, as Coy stated, Martha Stewart, some other celebrities is because they lied. They lied about the amount of money. But technically,
it's okay to deal drugs as long as you report it on your taxes.
Technically, if they go back and they go, well, taxes were never legal anyway, so you weren't even required to tell them anything. It's just a whole bunch of stuff's going to come down because, with all these three-letter agencies, and a lot of people are going to be filing lawsuits because some people had to pay high fines. They lost their businesses. They lost their land. You had EPA going out to people's farms in California. Come on, they got to pay for well water. They have to pay all this stuff. It's just regulations. It's not constitutional. So this is the beauty of it. Let's get back down to the Constitution and nitty-gritty, the Supreme law of the land, and we won't have any problems. I'm telling you. No more interpretation.
So what's freaking my brain out right now is just like what is it the EPA that does the whole rainwater collection thing?
Yeah.
Like if I stick a barrel right outside of my apartment to collect rainwater for myself, and the EPA comes by and tells me that I've violated a regulation, I can go back to them and say, what law? And if they can't come back,
what is it tied to?
Then I can sue them. For an exorbitant amount of money and live off how the EPA operates.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Now, in Washington State, they put regulations that you can't grow more than a square foot of wheat.
What? Why? How does that apply to any? Then that means no grower in that area can ever grow any wheat
without that license. As a regular person,
oh, with a license, you can regulate people's food.
Right. So now you can't grow your own to a certain amount without their permission. Now that's not illegal. It's a regulation that they put under what they told us is law, but it ain't. It's simply not. And so what they end up doing is that they'll do these little things over and over, and they say you can't do this, you can't do that. You can, how many square foot of your land you can't have covered. They have that as a regulation now. And not now, it's been around where you can only have a certain square footage of your land that has roof on it, including sheds and lean-tos, and it can only be a certain amount of coverage. All of these things are not law; they're what you call regulations.
Right. So what bill passed that has that specifically in it? Like none, right?
None.
Exactly.
So this is a good thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm digging this. I'm digging this.
I love it. I mean, you got to even look at stuff like, let's say, everyone laughs at those sovereign citizens, right? Everyone laughs at them. But you got to think about the driver's license. Nowhere does it say you're required to have a driver's license. That is a state regulation, but the Constitution was nowhere does it say you have to have one.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that's going to come down. A lot of these organizations coming up with all these different laws and these different rules and this, that, and the other. All that stuff's about to cease to exist.
Yeah. Like property taxes is a scam in the first place, because how are you ever supposed to own your home if the government can say you owe us money every single year?
Every time. Yeah, that's so dumb.
Based on how much you own.
Yeah,
right?
and it's no difference than vehicle registration. My truck is paid for. I own it. But guess what?
You don't own it if they can take it away from you. That's what I always point out.
Which changes now.
But yeah, so you register it, and guess what? You got to give the registration a copy of your what? A copy of your title. Mm-hmm. So you're signing over your title to get that registration. And like Coy said, the state owns your vehicle. You don't own nothing. With this, hopefully they get rid of all of that. You shouldn't have to register your vehicle. Why do I have to register my vehicle? Why?
Man.
Why?
Yeah.
Think about the taxes they're going to lose on these blue states.
Yep.
Look, I'm on. Look, the amount of fallout that's going to become, hopefully, comes out of this is going to be so astronomical that we will have no choice but to go back to what it should originally have been. Watch how people's money start to come back into their pockets because they no longer have to pay 15 different types of taxes or different license fees. Or California has like almost 100,000 of them. That's exaggerating, but they have everything is a fee. Washington State, the same way. You could go buy something at T-Mobile, and there are like 9 different taxes that you pay on just your phone, just to have a phone, and it's reoccurring taxes. So I'm paying them to be able to talk.
Yep.
So stuff like that will eventually go bye-bye. Looking forward to that. That should be amazing.
So can a regular citizen then hit at these organizations, specifically when it comes to Marlon's example about the recurring taxes going poof? Can you sue if it continues because there's no law regarding that?
Well, I think what you can end up doing is taking everything to your congressperson. They'll have more leeway to do what needs to be done, because now you can actually, I'm sure you can take it to the courts. You have more ground, more footing now. But I think hopefully, again, I'm putting way too much faith in the Republicans to actually do the right thing. But I'm going to trust the system for now. They have a lot more options now to really shut down certain organizations that have no legal right to be around. That's the best part of this. There are tons of entities that have come about as a result of regulations that are not lawful, right? And they've been put in place by certain government officials to be, to you, law, but on the books, not law. And hopefully this will give the opportunity to oust every last one of those things. And by the time that's done, man, we're gonna have a bunch of rich Americans because they're gonna be taking money off Uncle Sam.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna want them tariffs for sure. Now they're gonna definitely want that tariff stuff to take care of, which is technically, like you said, Jody, is how we really should be taking care of. The rest is by tariff.
And this is nothing new. This has been in the rumblings in certain circles, especially if you're on other social media platforms like Truth and what's that other one? There's another one that I'm on, but they were talking about them pretty much revamping the whole judicial system and going back to constitutional law. This was spoken about like last year that this was going to happen, but a lot of people just took it as some QAnon conspiracy and all this other stuff. But this was already being said that it's going to come down to it where a lot of things are going to change and they're going to get down to constitutional law. Now that they're down to constitutional law, guess what happens? Now all these judges, all these lower courts, all these people have to go back and read and understand the Constitution. They need to get rid of the regulations, get the regulations out your head. If it's not here in these documents that are passed by the Supreme Court, Congress, and the president or whatever, it's null and void. So now everything, when you stand in front of a judge, he has to look at the Constitution. It says, what Michael did, is it constitutional? Yes or no? Well, right here in the Constitution, it says he can do that. It doesn't say he can't. And that's the good thing about it. Constitution doesn't say he can't. Congress doesn't say he can't, but he did it. But it doesn't say he can't. So why are we here?
And yet,
this is the beauty of it.
And yet, so by that, in that same frame of thought, because ATF said you can't, based on some arbitrary, made up, make believe regulation that I personally interpreted as ATF, is what it could have said. I can't do a thing to you because it's not necessarily written in the Constitution for you to do or not do.
Or passed by Congress, you know, something. It has to be constitutional. Congress be constitutional. So yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and it's just, to me, it's giving the power back to the people, because at the end of the day, Constitution is libertarian, small government people like ourselves just want to be left alone, man. I want to be able to grow a garden. I want to be able to get rainwater. I want to be able to have my own livestock without some regulation, some government bureaucrat coming out to my land telling me, oh, that well is too big, or that this over there, your grass is too high or it's too low. We don't need that anymore. Let Americans do what they got to do. As long as they're out there robbing, stealing, and just totally not having any disregard for the environment, let them be.
Yep. It'll be interesting. Plenty's coming down the pike. Be ready. We'll be back on Wednesday. Are we back on Wednesday? Yes, we're back on Wednesday.
Pre-4th of July.
Is it the 4th of July?
Yeah,
on
I think it's
Thursday.
Thursday's 4th of July.
Thursday's the 4th, isn't it?
Wednesday's the 3rd. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't remember. So we won't be here Thursday because we're not having a show Thursday. But we may. I don't know. If it's the 4th of July, if we want a day off, we'll take the day off. We might do it Friday. Either way, we'll be back on Wednesday for sure. Make sure you tune into the rest of the stuff. Our shop is still open. Make sure you go check that stuff out. It's summertime. It's good gear to get people mad at you, especially now. Make sure you go abuse that. But we'll be back with Wednesday, and we don't have a topic yet. We will before the end of the week. Mr. Lee.
Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you then. Peace out.
Peace.
War.